Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Online Tech Summit, Reaching Your Full Potential Online, where we have top experts share their success to be uber successful online. And today I'm honored to have Gerry Crispin, who is from CareerXroads. He's a veteran in this field, and I'm going to just give you a brief bio about him, and then I'll let him talk a little bit more about himself. So Gerry is described himself as a lifelong student. He stays grounded by engaging a community of friends and colleagues every day, actively promoting the notion of talent acquisition, and is at the point of spear of HR. Gerry founded CareerXroads in 1996, and he has also co-founded a nonprofit talent board. He's a successful co-authored 8 books in this field as well, and written over 100 articles and white papers on similar topics. He's well experienced in this field, and with technology and everything evolving, he has obviously made great success. So thank you for joining. And I don't think I gave you full justice in that bio. So how about we do this? Why don't you tell me about yourself a little bit?
Well, it's all right. Shahid, thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. I love the fact that you're trying to pay it forward in a lot of different ways. That's kind of how I see myself in terms of what I do. So I'm a bit of a missionary in a sense. I really care about the hiring process and always have. I've been involved in some form of recruiting my entire life, and as your listeners may not realize, but I'm relatively old, so I'm. It's been a long life, and it's been a lot of fun. I enjoy it, and what I do really is connect talent acquisition leaders or people who are responsible for hiring in large companies with one another, so that they can benchmark and engage each other on a peer platform that is CareerXroads, and that is both it was a face-to-face set of meetings during the course of the year, but now it's a lot more virtual meetings, and we conduct 3 or 4 of those every week, so that those leaders who are responsible for all of the hiring can talk to each other about ways to improve what they do and how they treat candidates, how they treat their recruiters, how they treat each other and the business leaders in a way that really enhances everyone. And so I'm just passionate about that. I will say that I require my clients to have really 3 or 4 things. I require that they actually care about recruiting themselves, and they have to demonstrate that to me. I require that they have some critical thinking skills and can challenge one another in ways that are constructive. I require that they share unconditionally the practices that work and those that don't. So being transparent, I think, is important. And I kind of require that they are compelled to improve, get better all the time. And if I can surround myself with people who have those 4 things, I feel energized. I'm fully engaged. I care about their success, and I'm always looking for new ways to be helpful to them. And so that's kind of what I do. So I actually interview anybody who wants to join CareerXroads, even though there's a lot of money involved at the point that they've decided to do that. It's really large corporations that benefit by it. So I interview them and turn a number of them down.
Nice. That's good. That's good bio. That's better than what I did for you. But so I wanted to ask you, especially in these days of obviously that we are all online specifically.
Yep.
Everything has been shifted to online. And I think for the foreseeable future, we probably will be seeing a little bit more of these as well.
Yep.
Tell me about your journey specifically. How you've talked about CareerXroads, but kind of like tell me about your the how do you see that change in terms of the online aspect of it, both from I guess acquisition of your own clients, but also like how do you see technology being played a part in this? So.
Well, technology increasingly will have to enhance a new set of practices. And so technology is going to have to pivot just like everyone else. But it's the practice itself of, in this case, recruiting or hiring,
Right.
that is undergoing the largest transition. So when you think about getting hired, if you will, typically you might connect to a company. You may find that company's technology tools take a look at your resume and automate the matching process. And we know that sometimes that isn't done very well.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be a software engineer and suddenly, I don't know, it's software something, but it's not engineering. Um, and it's getting better and better, obviously. So technology tools that relate to how one is found, searching for leads out there,
Right.
automating a set of messages that might engage you because your value systems and the company's value systems match, and so intrigue you in terms of going and learning more. You learn some more, and then the technology matches against your capabilities and what the needs are of the company and suggest to you some opportunities. And then, of course, there's this whole selection process and decision process that takes place on both sides. You need to have more information. They need to have more information. And very often in the old world, you would be invited to come in and meet with the hiring manager in person and potentially have an opportunity to maybe even meet teammates and so on. And then you would go away and hopefully within a very short period of time, you would have an offer, or you would know that they're not going forward and someone else won the job, whatever.
Mm.
Well, one of the things that's changed now is no one's meeting anyone. So
Right.
so the whole idea of, Zoom or any of the other tools that are out there have now been scaled in most corporations to accommodate every single hire. That means that whatever interviews you have personally with any number of managers or teammates, potential teammates,
Mm-hmm.
are going to be done virtually. And the quality of that platform in terms of recording what goes on, in terms of being able to potentially answer questions, in terms of your being comfortable and engaged and know how to do this from the candidate perspective as well as from the employer perspective, starts to get pretty nuanced.
Mm.
Everything from where do you put the picture of the person you're talking to so that when you are talking to them, it looks like you're looking directly at them, as opposed to you're turned 90 degrees looking at the wall somewhere, right? What is it that's in your background that either enhances or detracts from my ability to pay attention to what you're doing? What's happening in terms of how the technology is examining, for example, the tonal quality
Mm-hmm.
of how you're speaking to detect a level of nervousness that might indicate you would not be a good fit for this job?
Right.
And am I disclosing to you that I'm using technology at that level?
Hmm.
Think about that for a second.
Hmm.
As well as, what if that technology is also looking for, has an algorithm that examines your speech patterns and reflects whether those speech patterns are consistent with the speech patterns of people who are successful on that job? And is there a bias built into stuff like that?
Hmm.
And is that bias impacting the choices that one makes?
Right. Right.
And so it goes on and on, and then it's now you as the candidate. Maybe I've selected you. What technology can I offer you as an employer that would help you better understand what's going on in this company? Do I have, can I offer you virtual shadowing capabilities so that you could spend time with teammates, lurking over their shoulder or whatever? Can you attend meetings or see some meetings that have taken place within the organization that move the project forward, for example? You know, and doing so, you get to meet and see some of the personality variables of the people that you're going to be dealing with, and you know, and this is a place I want to be,
Right.
you know, that kind of thing. So technology becomes a critical component now of how the recruiting journey will take place, but it's only when the companies are willing to be more transparent about what that journey incorporates. You know, when is it and how am I assessing you? When is it and how are you, you know, getting the data and information that allows for you to make a good decision? Because
Right.
obviously I could want you, I could see that you can do the job, I can offer you the job, but if it's not the right job for you, your performance will not be up to my expectations, and you probably will turn over as well. So it takes two parties to make a great decision. And now the issue is, how do we transfer information? How do we communicate? And again, technology is going to play an enormous role in doing that, particularly as we move from a kind of asynchronous, you know, into an asynchronous, interesting kind of world. And the fact is, lots of your questions could be answered by potentially a chatbot, depending on the job.
Right.
And that could happen 24/7. Why should we try to figure out which day of which and what hour we're going to, for me to answer a few questions from you,
Right.
right? So we're seeing all kinds of new tools develop, as well as, you know, if you could come to the website of a corporation and click on a link and identify people that you have an affinity with already, people that you worked with in a previous job, people who you went to school with, people
Right.
who are in the same professional association as you. What if I could show you that within the framework of the job itself as a starting point to whether or not you have an interest? I think those are the kinds of things that we're seeing shift at a faster rate now than they were in the past, in part because COVID-19 is forcing experimentation with new ways of doing things at a rate never seen before.
So true. So it's true. So you mentioned an interesting point, chatbots. And obviously you see a lot of that, especially if, you know, if you go online, you want to talk
Yep.
about your bill, a website just pops up, you know, that's a chatbot. Do you see that even post COVID-19, however long that takes, right?
Oh yeah.
That these tools, technology tools, whatever, are here to stay, or do you think we're going to go back to the you know, the old ways of, especially
Automation is here to stay, Shahid. It's absolutely, it will only get better.
that's true.
So
Yeah.
so right now in the recruiting world, chatbots are being used um, more and more, clearly. Companies like McDonald's are literally hiring all of their store employees through chatbots.
Wow. Okay.
So think about that for a second. You don't see recruiters
Right.
if you go to McDonald's. If you want to get hired at a store,
Hmm.
the majority of stores in the McDonald's scheme of things are using chatbots to completely hire and make the offer, you show up.
That's interesting.
So now, if you're a scientist, it's not working because even though you have a title of scientist, every scientist has a different focus, different PhD, different. There's a different set of nuanced tools, and chatbots aren't there yet. They really appear very stupid when they're trying to answer questions, etc.
Right.
On the other hand, if you're a scientist and you go to the career website and you use the chatbot to ask about their benefits or those kinds of things, you could probably get better information faster than you could trying to navigate the dumb career site that has some 20-year-old navigation tool.
Right.
So so what we're seeing is, for example, technology being used with a career site, that if you went to a career site now and you put in that you are a scientist living in Silicon Valley that has these specialties, the career site might in fact change and morph so that there is a potential, there's a link perhaps to the director overseeing your area of focus rather than some other area. And there might be a shift in terms of benefits at a given level that would be more relevant, so that the navigation is more customized. So that kind of mass personalization is starting to be seen. Does it still have a lot of flaws? Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. But you know what? When you put it in perspective and you think about what it looked like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we're seeing significant shifts.
Right. No, I mean, obviously there's a lot of benefits, and it's interesting you mentioned chatbots, McDonald's. I didn't know that, and that's I always thought chatbots were like more for like just simply querying your questions and answering the basic ones. But to use it in this capacity, that's impressive. I guess you're right, that's something that you can see it
But
evolve.
think about the simplicity of the 8 or 10 jobs that might exist in a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, you either have those things or not.
Right.
So when the answers are all yes,
you have the
the only question is, when do you show up? Really, and that can be organized if the opening is there. So
it's true. No, it's a good point. That's a very valid. That's good to learn on that. So, what is one? So we're almost near the end here. What is one tip that you can share with all of us, anybody, that we can implement today to have success? Whether it's online, primarily online, I guess. Like obviously we're in the online world right now, but how do you kind of take one tip that you can offer today to have success?
So one tip is when you, and I'm going to stay with the whole recruiting process from a career point of view, at various stages in your career, and in my opinion, every year to 2 years, but no longer than 2 years, you need to take stock of what you've learned, what you want to learn. Where are you in the process of your job in the context of a career, and your career in the context of your life? At different stages of your career, you may want to have more freedom to do other kinds of things with family, etc. So I think people every couple years need to take stock in relation to that. And as a result of doing that, it forces you to start thinking about what would be the next step or the next stage. And so my specific tip is, if you are at a point at which you look for another job, I have an absolute rule: never apply for a job in a company unless you first find someone in that company that you have some affinity for,
Okay.
that you can connect to. Now, what does that mean? And what that means is you need to be able to go to perhaps LinkedIn, and you need to look at that company in light of the professional association you belong to, the school you once went to, or schools that you have gone to, or the companies that you have been to. And there are other affinities, clearly. Look for any of those in combination with that company title, and you should find people who might have gone to a school that you've gone to, but maybe they're in the same program, but maybe you're separated by several years, so you really never met them. That's okay. You still have an affinity. And if you contacted that person and said, "Hi, I'm researching your corporation. You and I were in the same program, studying whatever. I see you're doing this. I'd be curious to get a couple minutes of your time to better understand whether, long term, I should be keeping this as a target." You're not asking them for a job. You're simply asking for help.
Right.
Just as if someone asked you for that, if you got that kind of a note, you'd say, "Sure, I can give you a few minutes. I'm happy to do so." And that to me has two things. One, it is the right way to go because now you're thinking in terms of your job and context of your career and context of your life. That's number one. Number two is the data shows that will increase your likelihood of getting that job by 10 times.
Wow.
And it's a much longer story as to how I collect that data over the years, but I have collected the data over 30 years.
Wow. Okay.
And it's still in our society, in the United States, in our society, you are 10 times more likely to get the job if a person who you have an affinity with refers you from the inside.
Interesting. It's a great tip.
It is a good tip.
Yeah, that's a great tip. That's a good one. That's definitely a good one. So we are near the end, and want to thank you again for taking the time. And you mentioned that you have some offer for any of our listeners that were watching. So why don't you present that offer? If you don't mind.
Well, I'm a connector. So the reality is I'm happy to chat with anyone within reason. Okay. They can look me up on Google. So if you spell my name, Gerry, Gerry, Crispin, Crispin, you can connect to me.
Sounds good.
And if you have, if there's something I can do, I'd be more than willing to spend 10, 15 minutes helping someone think through their plan, not my plan. I do not make a living coaching people, but I have strong opinions, and I would be happy to chat with someone who is seriously looking at some of those issues.
Perfect. That's great. What we'll do as well is put a link near the video with your information and what you just offered, so that way people can access that too as well.
Cool.
Anyways, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it, and it was a great discussion, great tips, and thank you again.
My pleasure, Shahid.
Thanks.